So today we're going to talk a little bit about some of what makes him such an awesome character, and if a lot of that transfers over to the Figma version. Honestly, I actually wanted the SH Figuarts version because it comes with his contract monster, but I settled for this because the other one was just too expensive. Him and Wing Knight. I want both, but I just can't find them for a decent price, so I'm still searching. But for now, this will do. His sculpt is actually really well done. I mean, you can already tell that one of the shining achievements of this line is that the base body, the basic detailing comes from Ryuki himself, and it's redone all throughout the characters. Now, how these characters can gesture and pose and the little accessories they get that helps make them look more like the character we saw on the show, that all varies from character to character. And so far with all of mine, the paint, the sculpt work, and the accessories have been perfect. This guy's no exception. I have no slop anywhere. All the details are there. I mean, there's the little things, like I've said before, that you don't have on the Figmas that you have on the SH Figuarts, like the belt. This belt is all sculpted. You can't take the deck out. But if this was an SH Figuarts version, on all of them, you can actually remove the deck, you can store the cards in there, and if you can't store all the cards in there, you can at least store one card in their visor. His is not like that. You get two heads on the staff. You get one with the wings splayed out and one with the wings closed, which, is the before and after usage of the cards. But overall, I mean, they got down the look of this guy, and if you pose him right, like you see in some of these pictures, he can be the sanctimonious, like, overpowered, pain in the ass that he is in the series. Now, we're going to look closer at the sculpt and the paint. The paint is really nice. I mean, it's kind of a, what's the word, pearlescent? No, pearlescent isn't the word. Prismatic, I guess, is the word. There's like a prismatic kind of sheen to the brownish, copperish color that he has all over his costume. And the same goes for that gold. It's not the typical Garo style gold that's like super bright. It's more of a subdued gold, but it still looks regal enough, And a cool thing is that in Dragon Knight, Wrath, as he was called, was Wing Knight's teacher. So he was like the badass dude from Ventara, and he was really powerful. And the villain, Xaviax, took him over. He beat him, emptied his mind, and used his body as a vessel for him to fight with when he didn't feel like using his own powers. In Ryuki, on the other hand, he was the 13th rider who was being used by Kanzaki, the main villain who started the whole Rider War thing. I like that the design can work for evil and for good. That's good design work right there. Now, accessories. He's got a bunch of accessories, just like most of the Figmas. The hands that you see missing, I have them attached to weapons, as well as the ones that are attached to him. But he comes with a bunch of hands, the tree for the hands. He comes with card, sword, two heads for the staff or visor, and a guard vent, which is the shield. I was actually really happy with what he came with. He's kind of, in terms of like excitement level, I wasn't super excited for this guy because, he's the super overpowered villain that can teleport and blah, 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 and stands up like a chomp all the time. And, he's just like flexing the whole time instead of a good fight, But, in my world, I'm going to make him more of a fighter, which is why I'm going to make him use his swords more often, more akin to how he handled things in Dragon Knight. His sword vent is actually really well done. Those swords look pretty mean and they look powerful, and he holds them well. He has hands specifically for them. I'm sure you can also use them for other things, but they work really well with the swords. The swords are well painted. I had no slop, and as you can see, they look good from multiple angles. They're kind of a feather wing piece motif. I want to say feathers because Gold Phoenix, his contract monster, has that kind of a design going throughout his wings. And if you look at all of the riders from Ryuki, all their weapons harken back to parts of their contract beast. They're usually made up of parts of their contract beasts, with the exception of Wing Knight's sword vent. Actually, and his sword. And the same goes for Fem. He just looks really good. That's all I can say. They did such a good job capturing the look of the character, and considering this is the Kamen Rider Ryuki figure version of Wrath or Odin that's at the lower price point, it's insane that they pull off this kind of detail and this kind of articulation and everything, which I'm going to get to. His articulation is pretty standard, but coming with the right hand, the proper hand for the cards, and hands specifically for the staff, and just all these little details, these tiny little things that help make it more interesting to play with this figure and to pose the figure. It's just nice. The cards are well detailed. The visor, like I said before, there are two heads for the visor. There's the guard vent also. I guess I'm going to go back into the visor later. The guard vent looks really cool. I mean, it looks like a weapon that you don't want to come up against. It's a shield with a blade on the end. So yeah, he'll really be jacking fools up with that. The center has this really nice pearlescent kind of crest in the very center of it, and it looks good. I mean, it kind of feels like an Egyptian Norse theme, and not just because of his name, it's the line work, But overall, he looks really, really freaking good, and the accessories that he has, they work really well with the character because they're exactly like what you saw on the show. And this is what I'm saying should always be the way things are done. And you're probably going to hear me say this until I'm blue in the face or until you're tired of hearing it, but it's the truth. Every figure that's based on a character from some form of media, the figure needs to reflect that to the fullest. There should be no excuses for why the figure can't look like what he's supposed to look like, So I'm really happy that he looks how he looks. I'm really happy that the accessories, none of them seem very delicate. I didn't have to worry about anything breaking. So overall, you end up with a badass looking figure, and there's not too much to complain about. And it's not like he needs the weapons to look badass, but it helps, I don't know, nothing to complain about in the art accessory area. His articulation is pretty straightforward. It's pretty much the same as all the other male riders in the series. He can look up about that much because his head is not on a ball joint, but it is on a standard Figma joint with a little tilt to it. So he can pretty much do everything that you pretty much would need for him to do. Side to side, up and down, no problem. If you need more range or space, you can pull the joint up a little bit out of the socket and it'll give you more of a neck, Arms move up about that much. The shoulder pads do kind of stop him from moving his hand all the way up just laterally. But if you twist at the bicep or at the shoulder, you can get it all the way up there. He has a bend at the elbow. It's more than 90 degrees, but you don't want to bend it and crush the shoulder pads, which are still kind of pliable. He has a wrist joint. It's like a swivel and a hinge, which is the standard Figma joint. His hand can move up and down because he's got the hinge there. No problems, no clearance issues. It moves perfectly. You also have a whole bunch of extra hands to change, interchange for different poses and whatnot. And, from my experience, I've had no issues with, switching around his hands. The hands emote really well. His torso. So this is kind of a combination hip and torso, leaning forward. And here he is leaning back. It's a pretty decent amount of range considering that the center torso, the abdominal area is made out of like a rubbery kind of plastic, and that's all the way down to like his thighs, the beginning of his thighs. He can move that much to the side and that much to the left and right, and it looks fine. It's cool the way that things are set up because you just don't feel like they skimped anywhere. And now the only point of contention I have is that the hips, because they have that plastic rubbery covering, pulling his legs up like this sometimes make his pelvis area kind of cave in, and it looks kind of weird sometimes. But, you know, if you play with it enough, you'll figure out how to do it right. He has a swivel at the hip and one at the knee. Standard Figma joint at the knee. He can bend more than 90 degrees, almost a double jointed knee type deal. His feet can pull up that far. They're also on a standard Figma joint. They can point down that far. And depending on how you position the joint, you can get the, you know, pivot. If you twist the joint and then, you know, put his legs apart, you get the pivot. You don't have to worry too much about that. And that's pretty awesome about these guys. And the joint also goes into the foot at an angle, so you kind of automatically get the pivot. So it's really easy to make these guys look good. It's not like Revoltex where you struggle. It's just its own little thing, and it's smooth and it's simple. Bottom line, you need a big baddie. When you have characters that look this badass, you need a big baddie. And the big baddie has to be someone that, you know, carries themselves with a certain amount of arrogance and a certain amount of regalness, you know, and he seems to embody this. He's got to have weapons that are cool. He has weapons that are cool. He's got to have, you know, moves that are cool. He has moves that are cool. You just got to be able to make him do things that, you know, even if you have a diorama going on your shelf, or you have, I don't know, just you want him posed on your shelf a certain way so that it's obvious that he's the villain, you know, there's little things you want to be able to do with him, you know, as far as mimicking what he has done on screen, and you can do that. And he looks really cool when you have him with some of the other writers. Matter of fact, all these writers just look good together. They look really good being, facing off against each other, and I enjoy it. I kind of am going with the idea of, at one point, these guys were all good guys, and, you know, Wrath managed to take control of the minds of, you know, the majority of them. Certain ones got their minds freed, and others were stuck under his control. So Wing Knight, Femme, and what's his name? I hate that, Verde, or Camo. They're fighting together to save their former, you know, teammates. But, you know, like I said, anything works as far as the look of these characters and the way they look when you put them up against one another. And, you know, using them like Figmas with your SH Figuarts in this particular line, they look so good that you don't really have to worry about, like, do they stand out too much, you know? At first glance, you'll miss that there are SH Figuarts in there. But, you know, as far as build quality goes and paint and everything, it's a quality figure. He looks very good with the rest of them. It's worth a buy. So I say if you see him, buy him. He goes for like 30 bucks, sometimes 28. So like I said, he's on the lower end because he wasn't a character that everybody wanted so hardcore. And I guess he's still not in high demand. That could be different now. But, you know, if you see him, get him. He's worth it. Almost all of them are worth it. And that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. I'm Strydent. This has been my review of Kamen Rider Wrath/Odin. That's it for me. You've been great, and peace outside.